Good morning, everyone. Karibuni sana tena. Welcome to the Aurum podcast, where we discuss all matters related to HR and risk. I'm your host, Anthony Kuria. And before I continue to say a lot of things and all that, let me first introduce my guests. I'm so happy to be with you guys. First, I'll start with my co-director, my beloved Zipporah Kuria. Welcome, Zippy.
Thank you, Anthony. Good morning. Good morning, Frank.
Good morning.
Yes,
Good morning, Tony, beloved.
Frank, I had to say that. That one I had to say.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's welcome.
We share surnames, so yeah, we share surnames, and sometimes we are too formal in these things. It's good to also appreciate the fact that we are co-workers and beloved to each other. Frank Kitonga, the country director, Nehemiah Project Kenya. Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Thank you.
Yes. Frank will be telling us more about himself. You can see he's still revving up the engines and all that. But Frank, we are really glad that you could make it again today. We had a wonderful session last week, and
it was fantastic.
It was awesome. It was awesome. Now, the Aurum podcast is hosted by Aurum Consultants, and we are a limited company specialized in HR and risk advisory, with focusing our attention on solving or resolving difficult human capital and business challenges. The reason why we exist is really to be a one-stop HR solutions provider for growing companies by leveraging on technology, people, and law. The pain points that we attempt to sort out includes legal application and statutory compliance, inefficient and ineffective business processes, and resolving issues to do with talent management. The solutions we offer include helping companies, entities comply with the labor laws, streamlining their HR processes, and providing financial indemnity solutions to various risks. The services we offer include HR outsourcing, HR administration, training, payroll administration, risk assessment, and advisory and recruitment. And we are glad to be here. Part of what we are discussing concerning the pains that we know many companies, many executives, many entrepreneurs suffer is the issue of employee disciplinary management. And this month of July, we have decided to warm up your month. I know it's pretty cold everywhere, but we've decided to warm it up by having a hot discussion in regards to employee disciplinary management. Zippy, probably, I know I'm catching you a bit off guard, but essentially, what is employee disciplinary management? Just in a nutshell.
Thank you, Anthony, and thank you for asking that question, because it's important for us to understand the background of what we are talking about. And talking about disciplinary management, basically, these are just guidelines and simple rules that would help us coexist together in a work environment, in a community. So when we talk about disciplinary management, where there are people, of course, there'll be issues that would come up. There'll be conflicts. There'll be people doing things that are not expected for them to be doing. So the question is, how do we manage this? And this is what we are discussing. This is the basis of our discussion. How do we manage issues that come up in the work environment that are relating to employees? And how does the employer manage these issues that keep on coming up so that they don't affect the business?
Thank you, Zippy. This week, actually, it was, I think, yesterday or the day before. Yesterday, actually. No, on Thursday. I went into a podcast by this guy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. I really like the way he brings out issues. And one of the things he was saying, which he said the difference between the wealthy and the middle class and the poor, among other things, is self-discipline. He said self-discipline, the idea that you've given yourself a goal and you're going after it, is something that those who have become wealthy, if you read the autobiographies of someone like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and probably, all these guys who we hear about. These guys have legendary self-discipline. So when we talk about employee disciplinary management, essentially we're talking, because even all of us, Frank, you and I, are employees of our respective entities. So it's also an issue that even management, you as the director, you as the entrepreneur, you as the boss, before you dish out disciplinary recipes to your staff, you've got to have imbibed the same to keep on track. You cannot form what you are not. Now, Frank, let me start with you. As an employer, what do you think? You've been in senior management positions for a while now, either employed or now doing what you're doing. As an employer, what should you do to ensure that discipline management is not an issue?
I don't know if first I'll start with this conversation on just what you said about self-discipline. Leadership is influence. Is that true? Because as leaders, we have to be confident that that's true. Leadership is influence. But so you say, no, but if I can fire you, I have influence over you. But that's the lowest level. The 5 levels of leadership, the lowest level of influence is based on position. So the highest level of influence would be therefore, so you're looking for influence so that you can influence your team to have a certain set of values and the way they do it. Now, the currency of influence is credibility. Now, if your guys, if you don't live a life which says to this person, my manager, my director, my boss has credibility, what you actually do, you lose your power of influence over your. So what happens? The day there's a little problem, they don't honor you. They don't really carry a respect and honor that will make them. Sometimes high employee turnover is just based on if somebody is leaving you, they're just leaving your position. But are they leaving? Are they leaving a conviction about life? Are they leaving somebody who's solving a big problem in the market and they want to be part of that? And for this minute, that's going to be the key to influencing them. So you see, my view is by the time you're getting to a disciplinary space, you have to really ask yourself, have I carried myself in a way that, commands such a heavy level of influence so that this person, when they come to a table, they feel like, if you're going to separate me from this vision, from what this company was going to change the world, that they feel, oh my God, I can't do that. But if they're only then you're in a very different space. It will be so easy for this guy. So, my brother, my view is this thing about ability and who we are, who we carry ourselves to be. I'm the man who says, we'll do this, and we do it. We're paying bonuses, yeah, we're going to pay. We're going to do this, we're going to do it. And I begin to set systems. But credibility is one thing. Second thing is authenticity. Now, you know what? You may not be perfect. Your word is as good as your bond. As in your bond is as good as your word. You're the kind of guy who's honest. You know what, guys? I made a blunder here. I made a mistake. Or you know what, guys? Yeah, I thought that this was going to be the way. It didn't work out. Let's try this other way. And you don't just look for any mistake to. It's. I don't know about you, Tony, but imagine you had a manager, a leader who says, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Wow! As genuinely so. Somebody who says, I actually don't know. I think you have the right idea for this. Why don't we try your idea? Authenticity and giving honor or giving credit where it deserves. And blame where it deserves. Somebody who you give, who you show. If you set a standard of great authenticity, guess what happens? Then you are able to actually discipline people. you're able to say, stop doing this thing. This thing will change. Is messing our companies. If they see you making the same changes, or if they can tell, Manze, unafanya nini hapo? I'll tell you a very interesting story. I don't know, this one was not part of the plan, but I remember we had this intern in the office, and the lady who was in charge of finance was the boss for that intern who had come, and we were setting up an ERP system in the office. So as we were going, one day I came to the office, and this lady who was the intern, she was not intern young, she was like a respectable person. I came to the office as, me, I have this personality, I'm outgoing, what? So I gave her a hug, I said, good job, you left at 12 o'clock, didn't you? Then my manager, the finance manager, wondered, Frank, you have never even given me a hug, what's up? Even know the people. The thing is, we went for lunch with my manager later, and I said, oh, I'm buying you lunch, let's talk. So we were there, she asked me, how did you give somebody a hug? I was like, okay, well, that was excess, eh? Oh, I'm sorry, I was this happy in the work. And the point is this I'm making. She had the courage to be able to ask me, what's up? What's up, boss? And I was so blessed. This lady, if this people may know who I'm talking about, is not the type of person who asks you only questions. But the relationship by that time, it was about a year and a half of working together and her seeing and feeling, I can actually tell Frank this. And I was happy. In fact, I could have decided that day to fire her. And I had the power to do it. But she had the space to come. You see, before you end up in a disciplinary process, there are things build as a CEO, as a manager, as a director, that will actually safeguard serious problems going forward. Guess what?
Frank, you have unleashed some gems there. Any one of us watching, if you're watching us right now, you're an entrepreneur running your business, you're a senior manager somewhere, you're a CEO, you're a GM somewhere, you're managing people, please, I hope you took notes to what Frank just said. That in order to ensure disciplinary management is not an issue, you have got to build up credibility. You've got to be, you're not telling people to do things you don't do. You've got to build up credibility by the way you act, by what you do. If you're telling people not to be late, you're there on time. The things that you ask of your team, you're doing them yourself. You've got to put up credibility. And the second thing Frank said is authenticity. That people see, yes, Tony or Zippy are who they say they are. They are not just, they are not robots. They walk into the office, did you do what I tell you to do? Yes, no. You are authentic. You can be able to say, there, you've done a good job. There, you beat my idea. There, I'm really sorry, this and that happened. Once you build the way, and Frank, as you were talking, I was remembering the experiences I've had in the workplace. And indeed, it is true. The bosses that, as they normally say, people don't leave companies, people leave bosses many times. So you find part of the reason why disciplinary issues come up is, you're thinking, who jamani nini? Yeah. What are you telling us? I don't want to go into stories. Frank, you and I can give stories until this podcast is 3 hours old. But I know one time I underwent something. The last bank I worked for, the branch manager I was working under, these two issues of credibility and authenticity were nil. Yes, we delivered stuff. We were, as a team, we were delivering, but no one loved working under him. Credibility was nil. You're telling people what to do, and some people have met you somewhere in some lodge in Naivasha, and you're telling them, don't this story. Don't ever speak again about where you found me. You've lost credibility. What are you talking about? You have no authenticity, you have no credibility. And therefore, when it comes to work issues, how do you tell somebody to style up? When they found you doing some madambis out there.
Absolutely. And let me give you one more, Tony, just before we begin the conversation. It's interesting. My bishop says this one. He says, people follow a vision. It is a vision that people are aligned to. They give of themselves. They give of their time, their money. People follow a vision. Let me tell you, you want to grab your people and hold them long term, where they are sold out to you and they're willing to give them a vision they want to die for. Let them see you pursuing something greater than yourself, something great that's changing the world. As they see you go to it and you're paying the price and you're being real, you'll find people behind you. You'll find people who are saying, don't worry, I'm with you. Do you know what? There are even suppliers who you'll never get into problems with. Supplier issues, customer issues, because they say, oh, no. Pali Frank anaenda, Pali company naenda, I want to be there. And you get even discounts. It's not even just employees. It's if you leave out this thing and you have the vision for it, you're willing to pay the price and you're willing to be honest in that, authentic in that journey. You will have followers. And the biggest followers you need are your team. Because it's your team that replicates your effort. They multiply your effort.
Wow. Today is a coaching session, folks. Today we are getting coached. If you're out there, send in your question and comments. We are ready and willing to hear them. Frank is not just discussing about disciplinary. He's bringing the focus beyond disciplinary. Disciplinary is mundane. Is ticking up, as it were, it's ticking a box. But now we are going beyond why disciplinary management does not need to be an issue. Zippy, let me bring you into the conversation. What's your take from a HR perspective of not making this issue the disciplinary management become an issue in the workplace?
Thank you, Anthony. It's difficult to talk after Frank has talked because he has given us such gems. And I like what he has said, the currency of influence is credibility. And a lot of times, I think as leaders, sometimes I think we let power get into our heads. And sometimes we don't do what we expect other people to be doing. So we tell them to do, but we remove ourselves from the equation. And a lot of times that does always work. And that's why sometimes you find people doing things and you're wondering what they are doing. But we need to go back and ask ourselves the question, are we actually doing and showing the example of what we expect of them? If, for instance, we have said, these are our working days, these are our working hours, and I know as bosses we get busy and all that, but do we show our employees we can actually go to the office on time? We show our employees we actually have the discipline to keep up with the KPIs that we have set for ourselves. So a lot of times I think the challenge sometimes comes from us leaders, and it's important for us to look at this issue from a leadership perspective. Now, again, for us to make sure this is also not an issue, I think as leaders, we also need to understand why we are doing what we are doing. Not just for the sake of doing, or just because Frank is doing. I need to understand for my business, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I actually doing this consultancy business? What is my vision? And how do I help my employees align to that vision? A lot of times, these challenges come because our employees are also not aligned to what we are doing. They don't understand our vision. They don't understand where we are going. They don't understand where they fall into. And they end up becoming, they work for the money. They are not working because they probably love doing what they are doing, or they love, just being there every day, but they need to put food on the table. So what happens in the process, there's a disconnect somewhere. And when that disconnect happens, then you start having challenges. So as leaders, I would say the first thing is we need to understand our strategy. We need to understand what the plan is and bring in our team members for them to be able to understand this is where they belong or what they need to be doing to help us achieve this vision. The other thing I would say is it's important for us to define our processes. and not just define those processes, but make sure we implement the processes. And how do we implement the processes? Do we implement by just saying? No. We implement by actually following the same as leaders. You know, if I have defined, this is how let's say something simple, like for example, leave. Let's say we have set a process where, you know, for me to be away from work, I need to follow a certain procedure. As a leader, am I actually following? Or do I say I am above the law, I am the law, and I'm the one implementing the law, so I am not going to follow? If we take that kind of an approach, what happens? Our team members will actually pick that up and they will replicate the same. And now we start having challenges. So we define our processes, but implement them by also doing what it is that we've said we are going to do. The other thing is, again, make sure you communicate those guidelines properly to your employees. Make sure they understand. From the time you recruit this employee, you bring them into the system, make sure they're inducted properly, make sure they understand the norms, make sure they understand, you know, what is expected of them and the consequences of some things not happening the way they're expected. Sometimes we don't communicate, and when things go wrong is when we start bringing things to the table. And this employee is wondering, where are you coming from? Because no one has ever said this to me. So I think communication is also very critical, how we make employees understand what is expected of them at the workplace.
Wow. That's, I like the way you've brought the HR aspect of how do you onboard, how do you, put, the requirements very clearly, and expectations, values, what are we following after, blah, blah, blah. So that by the time, and then now you brought in the issue of credibility, that, for example, Frank, you cannot decide, you're going on leave. When you go on leave, you're supposed to fill in this form online, submit it to your superior, and then blah, blah, blah. Then you are the boss, you decide, hey, maze kesho siko. Yeah, ube left. Yeah, they are not aware when you are going, when you are coming back, who will report, who takes over what. There has to be a clear, you have to be seen to be following what you have laid down. Frank, I want to ask you a very interesting question.
Anthony, actually, just to mention on that issue of credibility, it's just an example of an experience I had. And this particular CEO was on leave for a while. And they called me and they say, I've been on leave for this long. It's extended. It had extended because of unforeseeable circumstances. And this is a CEO saying, I want to make sure I am doing what is required as per the policy. How many leave days am I entitled to? So I have exceeded my leave days. What should happen? And we went to the point of, actually, if you have exceeded your leave days, we will have to take it away from your salary. And they were okay with it. And that actually talks about credibility. This is what I'm walking the talk. I'm not just saying it, but I'm walking it and showing it by example. So this is what we need to emulate as leaders.
Yeah, very true. Frank, I want to hear, I like hearing stories from your past. Because some of them are so fantastic. Now, from your corporate past, you spoke about endless visits to the labor office at one time as a boss. Yani wewe na labor office mlikuwa mnajuana. What lessons did you learn from those visits?
I'm telling you, it feels like headmaster. Sijika ulikuwa kaa mimi bad boy. Wali hedia alikuwa nakujua. Anasema akipata tu wale wase wali sneak. Anajua hiyo weekend. Frank, Mr. Kitonga, I see you here again. So it feels like kama headmaster wetu sale, when we are running a business, our headmaster is labor office. Let me tell you, I want to give you two examples. One as a victim and one as like when you're doing it.
Victimizer.
Because I was in procurement a long time. One time I was accused for what is it called? Theft or whatever, as in picking a supplier looking for money or something. And I remember, because as in anyone who's ever worked with me in procurement will tell you, who? Frank? No, that's not possible. So even I was shocked that somebody will accuse me for it. And it hurt me so much. In fact, this is one thing I prayed, and if there's something that's hurt me in my work life, that accusation was very, very big. But you know what, Tony? The only way out of that process was to go through a disciplinary process where somebody has to put something on the table and say, you know what? This is why we are accusing you for X. Otherwise, that decision goes into the right office with enough power, and somebody says, oh, Frank, we are suspecting you of this, sorry, you have to leave. But because there is a law in this nation, and because there is a policy in the company I was working for, somebody had to go and prove it. And they did. So they did. So we meet and everyone sits down and says, this is why we want to officially say we are accusing you. That point never got. You know why? Because there was nothing. It was hearsay. I think the way you're talking to that supplier, it looked like you met. I asked very clear question. Show me how you've come up with this accusation. And because it was not substantiated, I was told, we are watching. I said, look at my track record. I have handled much more money that we are discussing here. As in my track record, I handled, in my first role in procurement, I was doing 1 billion shillings a year. In my second, where I was regional procurement guy, I was handling about $300 million. So I said, wow. What do you mean you're looking at me to $30 million? What do you mean? So when we were looking at a job for 250,000, and you see, it was a process that helped me. If that process was not there, then there would have been in my record, there will be somebody who can say we caught Frank at least this once.
Yes.
But it's not there. To this day, I say we are on Facebook here now. Somebody can check. It was never ever an issue. Fast forward, you're the boss. And you're seated in your office, a letter arrives. Demand letter from a lawyer. 4 guys have gone to court, and because of XYZ, they're demanding for XYZ. You go like, what? Really? When did this happen? So you call your managers and you say, okay, guys, we're going to court. What do you know about this case? Please explain. And you realize that my team decided they have the power to fire. And they exercised it.
They realized they had the power to fire and went ahead.
Yes, and they fired. So I asked them, did you investigate? They said, no, I know. So how do you know? Did you tell the person what you know? I don't need to. I caught them. Do you have evidence? No. So what do we do? You know, let me tell you, Tony, when you find yourself caught, even when somebody has stolen and you don't have a really good way of finding out, you have to pay 12 months worth of salary quietly.
To that person who was fired for stealing?
Yes, but because you didn't follow due process. And anyway, now as a coach, because now I have cases of people now who, it's now they're the ones who fired the CEO, they fired, and now they're in court. And not just that they're in court, the legal process in the nation has actually awarded the person they fired. And guess what? What they're being required to pay.
You've seen them in the papers.
Yeah, as in the price is so high. For what? For following the process.
Not following the process.
Suck up and follow the process. And the process protects you. The process protects the business from undue whatever. If people are lazy or somebody is a thief or they are outside the process, you need to have a policy that clearly states this is wrong, good. This is what you do when we get you wrong. This is how we confirm it, and this is as in we had a case once with Zippy was helping me in this one, where one of my now direct reportees stole. They actually stole money that the client had paid, and they didn't do it. So we had to go through the process. I was so annoyed. I had given these people such a chance, such an opportunity. I had spent so much time with them in the trade, training them, teaching them, praying for them, encouraging them. You know, everything you do.
Everything. Yeah.
Then the guy steals. And when they steal, they tell you, those come and buy. Now you get even more annoyed. But even then, I can tell you, my experience is this is very simple. You will get somebody who will piss on all your generosities, on all your cojolea, for lack of better English. Yes. Somebody in your employees, they'll do it. They'll do something crazy. They will. Be sure it will happen. Because we don't know how people think and how people say. What I realize is when you're there, when you're in that place, you can make an internal decision. I have fired you. But those words, take your time, go through the process. You'll avoid labor laws. You'll avoid court orders. You'll avoid the labor office coming after you. You'll avoid so much. My experience is before you show all of your power, in Kikuyu, I think they say kurutiaditi. You know,
yes.
I don't know if is that good Kikuyu Korea.
Yes. Start from the beginning and do it slowly.
Yes. Then do it again nicely. Let me tell you, it's actually sweeter to fire people like that. You know why? Because you know you fired them. They have no recourse. They can never hurt you because you did it correctly. You know, if you follow the process, nothing. Even people don't have the guts to go to the labor office. Because they can see the process, they can see you follow the law, they can see it is what is stipulated in your policy. And first of all, you know what I realized? In most times that I was conducting disciplinary spaces, you actually catch somebody lying. Because you do a simple thing, I always used to record. So I'll say, we're recording this session, okay, according to the policy, we are recording, okay, so. What happened? We believe you did X, Y, Z, but tell us, what happened? Somebody tells you stories, Tony, is that, do you want to change your position? No. That is a position. Okay, thank you. Then you call a witness who you had interviewed earlier and done the thing. You say, what happened? Then the guy tells the whole truth. And I ask this guy, okay, would you like, by the way, you're on record, would you like to change your statement? Sasa Frank. Wanna change? Sasa CEO tell us. Wacha tu nikwambie boss. Wacha tu nikwambie. There are cases like that, but there are cases I found somebody in the middle. We just walk in, and this person was harassing. They were my manager. They were, in fact, this one was a second-level manager who was harassing employees, and I could see what they were doing. That one I fired on the spot. I said, here, you, until we finish our disciplinary process, you don't work here. You have been requested right now to go for right now, yeah. And you know what? This guy said, are you serious? Uko serious? Boss, uko serious about it? You know why? Because there are things that cannot be done a second day. Sexual people harassing people. When you they're what do you call them, Zippy? They have a name. Yeah, as in there are things you cannot do another day. It is summary dismissal there and there. That's why you need to have a governance structure in place, because it gives you the permission to deal with those things that are moral, that cannot cross. Corruption, you can investigate, or other things. But somebody is sexually harassing somebody. And it can be there both ways. It can be it can be a woman to a man. It can happen either way. There and there, when you find out, you stop that person. There. Let me tell you, the harder part there is not policy. The harder part is, do you have the guts to do the right thing at the right time with everybody? The guy I fired, Manze Tony, was this. I remember sitting and feeling, oh my God, what if he just swings at me? I am finished. But you've got to know, I carry the authority. Disciplinary process is one thing, but the guts and the confidence to do it, you've got to do it. When the rubber meets the road, you've got to do it. Lazima ujiamini ni mimi mwenye hii kampuni na nimesema niuradhie now. And you see power working. You know, when you finish saying something, you don't have to tell people, hey, no. You'll see somebody realize in their head, I'm fired. You see the power working. So for me, those are the two issues I will have raised there. Obviously, the process, obviously through the system, but when it's time to do it, do it.
Come on. Zippy, you've heard Frank describe what he learned going through the process of visits to the labor office. At some point, you had to guide him through as a HR consultant. Briefly, I can see our time is really gone. Briefly, us. What do you think? What's your view on what Frank has just described?
Wow, Frank is very right. And as a boss, I think you have to be very determined to do the right thing. And one of the things Frank has said that I totally agree with, as a boss, when you have an indisciplinary case, someone has stolen, someone has done something so gross, you know in your heart, I'm firing you. The worst case you can do as a boss is to actually say it in front of them. You know, you need to allow the process to go through. You need to learn not to act from an emotional perspective. A lot of times we act emotionally, we make a decision, and we don't follow the procedure. And what happens? It comes back to bite us. Most of the time when you get those letters, you'll either be accused of unfair or procedural termination. Now, procedural termination, it means actually you had a case to fire this person, but did you follow the procedure? And the consequences are the same in terms of cost liability. You end up paying dearly for firing someone who was on wrong because you simply did not follow a process.
The process.
Yeah.
So to our listeners and our viewers, now this is where we say, from Aurum Consultants' point of view, we're able to help entrepreneurs, business people, companies to be able to know what is the process that you are supposed to follow when, the thing that I discussed at the beginning, the issue of complying with the labor laws. Because there are labor laws concerning how you hire somebody, how you onboard them, and issues to do with the disciplinary, and issues to do with exiting. And if you do not know these things, you think because you've watched Donald Trump say you're fired, you're fired. You think you can operate this way in your own company. Woe unto you, as you've heard, you may need to pay that employee if the case goes to court. And we know the labor laws in Kenya really protect the employee because obviously the employer has a lot of power. You might find yourself paying a big amount of money. Our time is really gone.
I want to
yes, Frank. Yes, go ahead, Frank. Yes.
My lessons. Are, one.
Yes.
If you find yourself outside the law, don't keep pushing, using more money with lawyers. The Bible says a wise man changes his mind. Call your person aside negotiate, and pay what you need to, and release them.
Yes, that is true.
One of my lessons. Second lesson, do a root cause analysis. How did I end up here? Very honest, brutally honest with yourself and with the process the person underwent to get to that place where, when you do that, you know what? Own up. Labor office guys are human beings.
Come on.
You can talk to them. Lesson, just humble yourself. Mkubwa, unaona hapa huyu mtu alinisumbua, nilifanya makosa, unaona nifanye nini? Kwa sababu anaharibu kampuni na nimepewa watu wengi kazi, sasa tutaharibu kazi sababu ya mtu mmoja. These people can, you don't even have to bribe. If they see you're a genuine guy willing to, one of the problems is we walk into the labor office, we bang the door and we say, you know what, nitatuma lawyer wangu utaniona. The guy decides, even me, you will know I have power. You know, negotiate with the guy. Nilikasirika bwana. Let's discuss this thing. Talk to these guys. These people understand. They also want many people to be employed. We are building the same nation. People are reasonable when they are dealing with a humble person.
Yes,
or just using wisdom. And it's the same thing as saying, swallow your pride from the beginning. But if you find you didn't because you are angry, negotiate where you are. The other thing I learned is also have a strong legal team. Find somebody you can partner with, who you know. If things, as we say, so kama mbaya ni mbaya, you have also your lawyers. Prepare. So that if somebody is saying, I'll send you my lawyer, you'll say, okay, send your lawyer. Me, I have a serious one as well who can come. So my is also build the worst thing I've seen as a coach is when it's a family business and the family has not agreed how to deal with this. That's risky. Make sure you have a governance structure as a family. So when you act, you're acting as one. You don't want one feeling, no, let me talk to this employee. The other one is saying, let's fire. Mixed approach there, very risky business. Governance, go back, build a governance structure, and ensure that when you're dealing with a case, you're all agreed in the way. Maybe in execution, you can use a good cop, bad cop model, where there's a guy who can bite and a guy who is very nice, then you decide. But my lessons were, be brutal with yourself. How did I get here? And do something to fix that problem. And for me, that problem was ZP. Let's follow them. Let's follow the system. To this day, is our consultant. And we're building day by day by day by day. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say about it. If you find yourself, you're there, my view is I never had a scenario which blew out of proportion, because the other, when the lawyers of your employee realize you also have bad lawyers, they now talk as lawyers who they say, let's not go to court bwana, tuongee tumalize tukule pesa yetu bwana, tumalize whatever, ama tulipwe pesa. This is a simple matter. But when they realize you're in a weak position, they will hit you. So also strengthen your position when kama ni mbaya, go from a strong position.
Wow. So if you're listening, you're a business person, you're running your business, family business, you're a manager there, you want to know the solutions to these issues of disciplinary matters. Here we have received a wonderful tutorial by Frank on how, practically, you've been taken to the labor office. How do you handle it? He's talked about if you followed the process, then you have it. So you wonder, what is the process? Well, there is a process to terminating people. If you don't have it in your company, then you better talk to us at Aurum. We can be able to assist you on the same. put in a system that needs to be there. Then if indeed you acted out of rage and anger, then there are practical issues. Talk to the labor people, find out, is it possible? I mean, this person was found stealing and stuff like that. And above all, follow, if you can, solve these matters out of office, out of court. Frank, as we close, I was reading the story of, I didn't even know this guy existed. I just read that he passed away last year. An owner of one of the major oil service companies here in Kenya. And the thing that the obituary wrote about him, the story about this guy, is that he avoided going to court on certain issues completely. And most of the issues were related to labor. That this guy would prefer to sort out with the former employee out of court to avoid bad publicity. And that's the same thing we would want to advise our listeners out there. If you're running a business and you find yourself in court, punguza kiburi, find a way to be able to handle these matters outside. But beyond that, and this is what we are concluding with, have a discipline, have a process, whether it's onboarding a staff, how to confirm them, how to guide them in their workplace and all that. And when they need to leave and there are issues to do and they need to leave because of disciplinary issues, then follow the due process that has been laid in law. And if you do so, you will give yourself protection and you will retain. Because let me be frank with you, Frank. I mean, and even to our listeners, there are staff who even their colleagues think, jamaa mazee akitoka hii kampuni tutafurahi. Their colleagues are thinking, man, this guy is a problem. And if you follow due process, trust me, you will also retain the confidence of the people the staff who are there with you. So with those very few remarks,
I don't know if you're about to close, because I want to say something very quick.
Yes.
This thing about reactive and preventive, it's cheaper to be preventive. It's cheaper, and that's the whole thing about setting systems. It's cheaper to be preventive than to be reactive. Let me say this. Even people know where their systems. There are people who not even try. As in, there's places I went to work, and you knew if you ever left here, just leave. The cost of bad publicity on your brand, on the newspaper, this person was whatever, is so costly that you don't want to go there. And somebody may want to use it, and that's why I say, protect your brand before anything ever happens. How? Preventive. Set that system. Be preventive. Protect your brand in the market. And that's the case you've just given of this guy. And because out of court settlements are cheaper than a soiled brand. Obviously, there are people who now use negative brand publicity to grow their brands to be known. Well, I don't want to work in that model. Because there are huge benefits in setting systems early, following them, learning to follow them yourself, in being preventive. Your brand is given the space to go out in the market and do what it is supposed to do, to influence the customers in the right way.
Come on. Zip, you have a final remark before we go?
Wow. I think that was quite insightful. Thank you, Frank. I think what I would say to employers today is when you are faced with a challenge that has to do with the disciplinary, seek wisdom. Don't have a hardline stand. A lot of times we have serious hardline stands and we don't want to follow the process, even when the process is well defined. We want to take a shortcut. We want this person out now. We don't want to go through the process, and it can be costly. And like Anthony has said, that's where we are here to support you, to give you wisdom, to give you counsel, and to take you through the process so that you don't end up in court or spending money that you don't necessarily need to spend. That would be my takeaway.
Wow, thank you, Zippy. We saw there was a few comments here. There was Naomi Wambua said, very important information for employers. That is very true, Naomi. That is what we intend to do. to be a blessing to employers out there, to make them understand that there is something that needs to be followed. And Lois Wanjiko, thank you. You've said it's a great lesson. Thank you for your comments. We've come to the end of our podcast today. Thank you, everyone, for logging in. If you would like to know more about Aurum Consultants, the information is at the bottom of your screen. We are always doing this podcast every Saturday from 9 to 9:30. Today we've gone almost to 10. The topic was so sweet. We'll be here once more next week discussing the same matter. The month of July, we've realized having five Saturdays, and this is a topic you can discuss for half a year because it has so much to discuss. So kindly join us next week, same time, same place. We'll still be discussing employee disciplinary management, but we'll have guests who are now practically CEOs who will tell us how is it, like the way Frank told us his experience at some point. Hopefully we'll have guests who are sitting CEOs who are in the sharp end of bringing a theory into practical and telling us how do they control their rage when they have found somebody found red-handed doing the wrong thing, but you have to fight back and follow the process. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's meet next week, same time, same place. God bless you.